I'm here today to do my spoiler review for 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is a classic sci-fi, which, if you saw the beginning of my spoiler-free video, I did say that I knew the barest of bones for it. And that is really all I knew. I knew Hal was evil and kind of murdery. I knew about the weird ending, but most of it was through the movie references, not so much through the book. The actual synopsis is that humans have found this strange alien monolith on the moon. It pushes them to do a deep space expedition, and we follow them while they're still kind of intrasolar, and they're following this emission that the monolith gave off farther into space. Also, there's a Hella Bomb intro with the monolith that I really enjoyed, and honestly, it's the best part. And with that, I'll go into my likes and dislikes, where the first thing I'll mention is the last thing I just mentioned, and that was the intro. I really liked the story of Moonwatcher and Early Man, and the monolith and how it interacted with them. I thought that it gave you a really good idea of the monolith, the intention of the aliens, and kind of a fun version of the start of man. And the thing I loved the most about that entire section was, all I could think about while I was reading it is like, this is going to make evolutionists and creationists angry. I don't know anything about what the reception of that was when the book came out. I didn't look into it. I really should have, because I am curious now. But the intro was it was very well done. I think it was, like I said, one of the best parts of the book. My second positive here is the logic behind the decisions that were made. In the scenes you were present for, I think that when a decision was made, they did a pretty good job of like following it up with, oh, it was made for this reason, or the fallout of a previous decision is why we had to do this. And everything felt very reasonable, very logical, for the most part, in terms of the decisions being made. Even though this was written, I think it was in like the 50s or 60s, there is a sense of like timelessness about the story, because they never go too specifically into the technologies. They just kind of imply that we can do all of these things that we can't do right now. And my third positive were the bones of the story. I really liked the concept. I really liked the idea of what the story was trying to tell. And the concepts that I really enjoyed in particular in the story were like potential first contact with aliens, the question of how humanity rose up from its ape ancestors. Aliens? ? Like, I loved the situations presented. Like, the content was good. However, this leads me to my negatives. And this is where I get to say the general execution of this book, I did not care for. This is the first negative I'm going to talk about. Just the writing overall did not suit me or my tastes in terms of how a story is told. So there's times where I just wasn't enjoying myself. And my second negative is connected to this. I found the pacing really jumpy. And because of this, moving from scene to scene fell really off, because the pacing between situations was so different. It was like hitting a brick wall every time. You could go from a slower situation and then be immediately dumped into a fast situation, and vice versa, and it was just very hard for me to get into the following scene because the transitions were so choppy. And then additionally, with the writing, I didn't care for the characters. I found them pretty bland and generic. I truly still have trouble differentiating some of the characters. I know Frank and Dave are two distinct characters on the ship, but it took me forever to figure out which one actually survived. And not because I thought Frank and Dave were the same person. I just didn't know which one was Frank and which one was Dave. They just weren't that distinct, in my opinion, in terms of like how they were written. And with that, I will jump into the characters, where I'm going to say basically the exact same thing. They were bland, they were kind of meh. There wasn't a lot of character work, which is a little disappointing for me. I felt like if the characters had been a little bit more well developed, I probably would have enjoyed this a lot more. And a big issue for me here was that their characters were either tools or unimportant. And the ones that were unimportant were like distinctly not memorable, and the ones that were tools were only slightly more memorable, at least to me. Within the characters, I really only liked Hal, who ended up being evil, but I liked being able to dislike him, but also understand that it was kind of like a fear of humanity as to like what would happen if we got sentient artificial intelligence. And then I liked Moonwatcher's arc, and he never uttered, I think, a single word. He just followed a couple of little thought patterns in his head, and he was probably the best character in the book. So, I mean, I could go on, and I'm not going to. So I'm going to try to do a reasonably quick wrap-up, and I'll jump right into it. I'm giving this book a 2.5 out of 5. It is dead center, middle of the road for me. There were things I enjoyed, there were things I didn't like, but nothing was, I adored it, it was the best part, and nothing was so bad that I took an immediate dislike to the book. I really liked the ideas, I just didn't care for how they were presented. Bland characters, jumpy pacing, and a lack of info or context with some situations, which you kind of got due to the jumpiness and transition between scenes, just made this book really hard for me to get into. And unfortunately, my likes just didn't outweigh my dislikes enough to bump this higher, because I did like Moonwatcher's story, and I did like that you got the logic for the decisions made in the situation you were watching. And I did like the bones of the story, and I think that's what's like the most disappointing part for me, is that this book contained everything that I would need to enjoy a science fiction book. It just wasn't written in a way that I enjoyed. I can see a lot of other people really enjoying this book, so it's not that I would never recommend it. And with that, let me know your thoughts below. I'm really curious what you guys think of this story, what you thought of it. And with that, I will leave you here before I ramble way too much. I will see you in the comments below and in the next video. Peace.